To our discussion for today, we're looking at the compressed natural gas initiative of the president. That initiative was set up after the fuel subsidy was removed to address transportation costs and, of course, industry. To empower industry with cleaner, safer, and more reliable domestically produced natural gas there as well. Today, we're looking at the effort that has been made so far to reposition that sector. I have joining me in the studio somebody who understands that sector very well, who is indeed heading that sector so far. I have Project Director, CEO, Presidential CNG Initiative, Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi. He joined me right here in the studio. Glad to have you.
It's a pleasure. Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's begin this way. Tell us about the progress that have been made so far. You've spent over a year or thereabouts in office. In specific terms, what have you been able to achieve so far?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me once again. Happy New Year to all Nigerians. I wish you all a prosperous and, of course, peaceful 2025. First and foremost, we have to understand where we came from. If you're on a journey, you must understand where you are coming from.
Absolutely.
Prior to 2024, in 2023, Nigeria was definitely stuck on petrol and diesel as the only alternative for driving our vehicles. We had less than 3,000 compressed natural gas vehicles that were primarily in Edo State at the site of the NNPC 2017 pilot. In 2023, there was a need for the Mr. President, to move us towards a more sustainable energy mix and away from the ridiculous expenditure of fuel subsidy in the absence of Nigeria even producing our own petrol. Three things happened in 2024. The President ultimately finally implemented the removal of that fuel subsidy. The elimination of that fuel subsidy also meant that Mr. President also now invested in this alternative, which is compressed natural gas, to ensure that the common man can begin to enjoy the benefit of Nigeria's enormous energy resources without paying through the nose. And as part of that was the constitution in late 2023 of the presidential CNG initiative. And the third thing this administration did was to now also then focus on domestic production of more crude oil derivatives products, including petrol and diesel, which led to Nigeria starting last year. We started with 0 refineries producing any form of petrol, kerosene, or diesel, and by the end of 2024, petrol and kerosene, diesel, there are some modular refineries that are producing diesel, including EGTL, to be specific, because I'm a professional, I have to keep the facts right.
Absolutely.
But when it came to petrol, at the beginning of last year, there was no refinery in Nigeria that was producing any. At the end of the year, as of December 31, we had 3 refineries. We have the Dangote refinery, we have the Port Harcourt refinery, and the Warri refinery now producing petrol. And Nigeria is now going to become a net exporter of that product. These 3 critical energy steps were taken by the administration to put Nigeria on the path of energy security, which is very, very necessary for the overall growth of the economy. In the area of the CNG, when we started the year, there were just 7 conversion centers in Nigeria. We ended the year with 193 conversion centers. That means we added 186 new conversion centers, not with government money, but by working with the private sector to invest in that sector. Those conversion centers allows us to take vehicles that are currently running on petrol to be able to run on CNG and petrol. Beyond that, we're able to attract over $440 million of investment into mother stations, daughter stations, some of which are already in development and already being commissioned. We have about 86 daughter stations on that development. We actually got another 6 commissioned last week in Lagos by NNPCL, in addition to several others now in development. We have over 50 mother stations that are now in development as well. 4 of them got commissioned last year. We have several mini LNG projects that we extend the reach of CNG across Nigeria, also now under development. We expect at least 2 of them to be commissioned this year in and around the Ajaokuta area. In addition to all of this, the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Finance, acquired over 5,900 EV and CNG platforms, and these platforms are now being distributed. In December, those platforms, that's buses and tricycles, supported the Federal Ministry of transportation's free transportation program that would going between cities, intra-city between Ibadan and Lagos, Ibadan and Ilorin, Lagos and Ilorin, Abuja to Kaduna, Abuja to the east, to Edo, Edo to Abia, and even all the way to Port Harcourt during the Christmas period for free. These were CNG buses that were deployed on those routes. In addition to those CNG buses, there are those 15 high-capacity buses that were deployed through NURTW, RITIAN, and NATO here in Federal Capital Territory to all the suburb areas, conveying our people free again since the month of November all the way to the first week of this year. I think it's the free transportation ends today, and then we now start the paid-for fare. All of these are progress that are being made. In addition to these, there are several of these buses that were distributed to our unions, to the TUC and the NLC as part of the federal government negotiations with them to ensure that we're able to make the lives of our workers and our people better. All of these are many of the achievements that we have done this year. In all of these, the biggest achievement we've done as a country is not just raising the human capacity development for the sector. Because if you have a sector that is still driven by importation and expatriates and foreigners, then you cannot sustain it. Absolutely. Over 1,115 new conversions technicians and engineers were trained through the efforts of the PCNGI last year. In addition to these, our training institutes are now 4. We have partnership with NITT, the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology. We have partnership with NASENI. We have partnership with SMEDAN. And we also have partnership with NED, the Nigerian Automotive Design and Development Council. These are very critical partnerships as we try to also create new standards that were also unleashed last year, and the creation of the Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System to make the entire ecosystem safer and better for all. These are one of many achievements that we achieved last year. Chief of all, we attracted investment and we created jobs. You
created jobs indeed, which is very, very key and very, very important as well. You did also, you mentioned talking about the conversion centers, 193 conversion centers. What is the spread? I know you're looking at 1,000 conversion centers. 193 is still, well, the distance from where you are looking to go. But tell us the spread and how Nigeria can access some of these locations.
Absolutely. So when we set out in 2024, we set a goal of 100 for ourselves. We achieved 193. So we beat our own goal by 93%. We've raised that goal higher for this year. We want to hit 500 by the end of this year. But the 193, specifically to your question, are located in 17 states. There were only 7 states in Nigeria that had any conversion center when we started out this program. Today, we now have them in 17 states. So 17 states of the Federation, especially in the South-South, Southwest, North Central, some in Southeast, and as well we have Kaduna and Kano is also covered in Northwest. We hope that this year we'll extend that footprint to the Northeast and even hinterlands of the Northwest.
Indeed. What about the number of buses that you have on the road? I remember last year, September, when you handed over some buses to some transporter in Lagos, about 20 buses, I guess. You say your target was 531 or thereabout before the end of the year. How many buses do you have on the road? Because I have used one of your buses in Abuja here, but I discovered that there are still few CNG buses on the road, and a lot of Nigerians are looking toward patronizing that. Absolutely. How many do you have on the road? And if you can tell us specifically their locations and of course states.
Correct. So today we have about 431 or thereabouts on the road, and these are located in Oyo State, in Lagos State, in Kwara State, in the FCT, in Kaduna State. We also have a few of them in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, as well as in Anambra and Abia State. The footprint, of course, is limited because of refueling, and we want to make sure that these buses are located where they can get fuel. We've also distributed some through TUC and NLC, and they have a much more broader distribution as well as NANS as part of the agreement that the federal government had with those unions. So we have about 430 currently distributed across the country, and more is coming. We're able to raise what we're expecting to about 807 from 500. So I believe by the end of this quarter, we should be closer to 600 than not.
Okay, that is the government-sponsored vehicle.
Exactly.
What about the private, CNG vehicles? How many can you estimate that we have?
No, we estimate that easily because we've got some state governments that also brought in quite a number. Niger State brought in 200. Enugu State is bringing in about 500 taxis. Lagos State is bringing more than 100. So we estimate at least 3,000 buses. We saw that FAN, if you go to Lagos Airport now, have 5 CNG buses that are running in the Lagos Airport. So we are seeing that the adoption rate, as we are pushing the adoption and increasing the footprint of the infrastructure, we see that both MDAs as well as state government and private sector is buying into it and purchasing buses. Even Taraba State, even though they don't have ready gas infrastructure, they are also investing in CNG buses. Maiduguri, Borno State also invested in CNG buses as well. So I'm confident that the traction is great, that the gospel of CNG is gaining traction, and that somewhere near you already said that you have already commuted on the CNG bus like Absolutely. 3 times, and that's going to continue to increase. We are seeing the private sector continue to invest more in the sector, and that's what we want. Because government alone cannot do it. State government, you listen to the president's New Year message. He said state governments have to co-invest with the federal government in alternative energy, including CNG and EV, and that's what this is all about. Okay,
before we talk about the maintenance, let's you'll be mentioning state government. How much of engagement have you had with states across the country so far?
We've gotten some very critical engagements. We have met with the Transport Commissioners Forum in Abeokuta earlier last year and later in the year through the World Bank in Abuja in Transcorp. So the Transport Forum has been a critical engagement point for us with our states. We've also had interaction with several state governors, and a lot of them have prioritized. I did a tour of the Niger Delta states last year with NDDC being a subnational regional development commission. And we had engagement with River State, with Edo State, as well as Bayelsa. And I actually have an upcoming engagement next week with Cross River State. In the north, we've had very critical engagement, ongoing engagement with Benue State, with Plateau State, with Borno State, Kaduna State, Kano State. These states have been at the forefront of CNG adoption in the northwest and the northeast. In the north central, Niger State, like I said, and Kwara State, as well as Nasarawa State, have been quite engaging. I think, including Kogi State, Ekiti State, and Oyo State, and Lagos State, and Ogun definitely has been at the forefront of engaging with us. So I think the Nigerian Governors Forum, led by the governor of Kwara State, have been very, very supportive. And that's why you see even the first pilot site was flagged up in Ilorin in Kwara State because of the support of Governor Abdurrahman. And the same is true also in Ogun State as well as in Lagos. Lagos have invested their own money directly through Ibile Corporation, who is also one of our partners, Ibile Oil and Gas, and they also were beneficiaries of the MDGIF, the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, last year, and they are doing more as far as investment into the CNG value chain is concerned.
Okay, well, in terms of private sector participation, how much percentage will you say you've been able to achieve so far?
I would say private sector has been overwhelming investor in this sector. If you look at it, federal government has invested about 130, maybe let's push it 200 billion naira. If we don't even factor the actual drawdown from the 2023 and 2024 appropriation, if we factor in the drawdown, we're talking maybe 140, 170, which would put us at about $100 million, right? But yeah, I've told the private sector I've invested that we've tracked $440 million. That's a ratio of 4 to 1. So I would say the private sector has 80-85%.
Indeed. Let's look at the cost of producing these buses now. And of course, whether you're patronizing the locally vehicle manufacturers. A lot of people say the slow pace of the project is because of the cost of some of these vehicles, that it costs a lot to produce one. I've interacted with some transporters who did say that. How much of that, how much is that impacting on your project?
I would say Nigeria is still primarily a used car market. So the cost of production of a new vehicle has some impact, but it's not much impact. We are still a used car market. And this is the reason why we are focusing on conversions. And the president has offered free conversions to all commercial vehicles, because we recognize that this is a used car market, not a new car market.
Free conversion of 50%?
Free for commercial vehicles, 50% for rideshare.
Okay.
Yeah, for rideshare is 50%. So if it's a used car market, it means that any commercial vehicle owner buys a used car, they can take that used car under the banner of their unions and get it converted for free to CNG. So we think that is the way this market will interact with CNG first. In terms of new vehicles, they're important, but mostly important for government-owned and large private sector-owned entities that want to acquire new buses, as the case may be. But by and large, this is a used car market, and we think that it's more sensitive to the cost of conversion, which we've made zero for commercial vehicles.
Okay, talking about patronizing local vehicle manufacturers, how much of that are you doing?
A lot. I mean, I don't think there's any. I still had a meeting this morning with one or two of the local vehicle manufacturers that are planning to supply the Federal Ministry of Finance. There's really no local vehicle manufacturer that has not been touched one way or the other with this program. The first vehicles were supplied by Jets, and they were also supplied by Innocent. They were supplied by. They're being supplied by Nord. They're being supplied by Lanrishitu Motors, and all of these companies. Kojo Motors out of Onitsha, about as well is doing some supply. Mikano, TGIS for tricycles. Again, these are local companies, and for us, at the end of the day, is how do we enable? Even though it might be a little more expensive, it might take a little longer, but you are creating jobs, transferring technology, and ensuring that if the vehicles break down, they can be maintained here locally instead of us having to call China every time the vehicle breaks down. Yes, they will. There's no vehicle that is 100% Nigeria assembled or any assembled in any country in the world. What happens is that you take your parts from different countries and you cobble together the vehicle, but the driver train and the engine train is something that you have to understand. And that is what our local companies are beginning to do. So we are very encouraged by the participation of our local companies, and they are taking the forefront in the implementation of the CNG program. And we think very strongly that patronage is going to continue into this year and into the future to ensure that we are not dependent again on importation of human knowledge in this instance or technology to be able to drive the CNG
initiative. Indeed, a very good one. Let's talk about the maintenance cost and the kits unavailability. A lot of transporters have engaged with did say they find it difficult to access the kits, and they also talk about wanting to know the maintenance cost. How much does it cost to maintain a CNG powered vehicle, and of course the kits unavailability as well?
Yeah, so your cost of maintenance goes down because you're using CNG, because it's cleaner fuel, so you don't have to go to change your oil as often as you have to do a petrol vehicle or a diesel vehicle, which is quite dirty. Your cost of maintenance goes down dramatically, and your frequency of maintenance also reduces. Of course, you need specialized knowledge of, and that's the reason why for us training those technicians, the over 1,100 technicians I spoke about is important, because if you take your car for maintenance, then you have to make sure the technician has the knowledge of CNG so that they don't mess with your existing system. But maintenance cost as well as frequency goes down. Now, in terms of kits availability, of course, because it's a new area and everybody is trying to get it, there's always a measure of scarcity in the market. But the federal government is in front of it, is taking a lead in it. We acquired over additional 70,000 kits again through the Federal Ministry of Finance late last year. We're expecting them to land any moment from now to ease that supply constraint in the commercial, what we call the conversion incentive program for the commercial market. But the reality is that today there is sufficient kits for the moment, but we know that there's demand. There's a long line.
Higher than
exactly.
what we have.
But the bottleneck is not the kits. The bottleneck is still your conversion centers, because for every conversion center, there's only so many conversions they can do in a day, right? I mean, and these are new conversion centers that just have new technicians. They are still slow and in terms of the speed. As they get better at it, they can be able to do 2, 3, 4 conversions a day, but maybe they will start with 1. So if you do the math and you see an average of 2 conversions a day in 193 conversions, that means we are doing barely 400 conversions a day in Nigeria today. So that will,
which is still a lot.
It's a lot, but it will put, that's a significant constraint in terms of the number of vehicles that want to convert. We have in the country over 1.5 million commercial vehicles.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing just 400 a day, you can imagine there will be a feeling of scarcity. So the bottleneck, the constraint is not so much the kits, is the availability of conversion centers and the availability of technicians that work in those conversion centers that can work at high speed to do the conversion. So that's what really is the main concern. That's the reason why I'm focused on that number every day. I see that number in my dream. How do I move that 193 to 500? How do I move that 500 to 1,000? How does that 1,000 become 2,000? The more conversion centers we have in the country, the more faster we can do conversions and move people to CNG, the more we even have the ability to distribute CNG, because as time goes on, these conversion centers are also going to be dispensing stations for CNG. And even the more we are going to be able to maintain the CNG vehicles, because if you have any problem with your CNG vehicle, it's more better to take them back to the conversion center than to just take it to a generic mechanic.
Indeed. Let's talk about the monitoring and evaluation of some of these your people. How strong is your monitoring and evaluation unit? Because a lot of people are saying the kit may be available, but because of sharp practices, some are finding it difficult to assess them. Maybe you may have to pay higher than what is the original price.
Yeah, so we are very aware. Nigerians are very interesting people who are entrepreneurial, so people try to create a trade around every government program, and we've been collaborating with some very critical government agencies, including the EFCC. Been drafted to profile all our convention centers to keep them under very close monitoring. This was signed off late last year, and so they will be starting their profiling any moment from now. And so anybody that is engaged in any sharp practice should know that someone is watching, the Red Eagle is watching, and the law will come down heavily on any of such people doing those kind of activity. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, we have both our internal and external monitoring teams. Our internal team do come down to suspend participants that we feel are engaged in any kind of sharp practice, and we've done that severally, and that's something that we're very aware of, that we need to have a very strong control mechanism to prevent this kind of sharp practice. Our external teams also, on the other hand, also exist. This Office of Policy Monitoring and Coordination in the Presidency. We report to them all the time. We have review sessions in terms of our performance, in terms of hitting our goals, and in terms of achieving our objectives. And so we, as an organization, we do not just have the internal, we have the external, we also have a third party like the EFCC constantly monitoring our processes and our systems.
Indeed, very good. Let's talk about the safety. You have said that the CNG is 10 times less explosive than petrol.
18 times.
18 times, okay, less explosive than petrol. Maybe some people may want to disagree with you. Maybe you can shed more light on that. Now you have the opportunity.
No, it goes without saying. I'm an engineer, so I'm a scientist. I speak to the science. Petrol is easily your most explosive hydrocarbon, right? And it's much more different from diesel, and definitely much more different from ethane and propane and methane, which is methane in this instance is a primary constituent of CNG, that's natural gas. So based on the chemical constituency of both petrol and CNG, we know that the double chain, triple chain hydrocarbon, that is petrol, is a lot more explosive than single chain linked methane and ethane. It's 18 times more explosive than CNG, that's petrol, and diesel, and 8 times less explosive than diesel.
Wow.
So that's a scientific fact. In terms of self-ignition temperature, it's about 1001 degrees centigrade, much more higher than that of petrol and diesel. In terms of, it's much lighter than air, it flows and disappears very quickly. If we take and contextualize even the near-miss accidents that we have in Nigeria today, you take, for instance, what happened in Edo State. There were 3 injuries, not fatalities. If you had something similar that happened in petrol a day before, killed 175 in Jigawa by the tanker explosion that happened in Jigawa, and 175 people instantly lost their lives. So when you are in a petrol vehicle, you are sitting in the most dangerous form of transportation when it comes to hydrocarbon, and you are sitting on the bomb, because the petrol bomb is right under your buttocks, where the petrol tank is. So if you have anything to fear, it's in a petrol vehicle, and that's why 9 out of 10 times when you have a petrol vehicle accident, it is fatal because of explosion and fire. That is not the case with CNG.
CNG, indeed. So Nigeria can indeed take your words to the bank. That indeed is easy. I mean, the safety of the CNG is much better compared to petrol. Let's talk about the quacks in the industry. How do you intend to address that? Like what happened in Edo that you alluded to was attributed to some quack. How do you intend to eliminate that from the system?
Absolutely. So we are working with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Gas to launch what we call the Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System. The NGVMS, we demoed it, we designed the demo, we developed the demo actually last year, and now we are pushing it for adoption through the policy regulator. The Federal Ministry of Petroleum Gas, having oversight of the supervision of the sector, is going to be working with various agencies, including Nigerian Automotive Design and Development Council, to ensure that only properly accredited conversion centers, as well as technicians, work on your vehicle. And that those conversion centers are also inspection centers for OEM vehicles, because some vehicles are originally made as CNG. They too need to go through first inspection and regular inspection of tanks, as well as the constituents. They will also work with the Standard Organization of Nigeria to make sure that the kits and the cylinders coming into the country are also registered and standard. And to make sure that only the registered ones within the NGVMS can be utilized by the registered automated center and technician working on your vehicle. So every vehicle will then be given a unique NGVMS identity, and that will tell them where the vehicle is worked upon, the person working on it is accredited, the way they are working upon is worked upon is accredited, and above that, that the kits and the materials that is being used to actually convert those vehicles are also standardized and also registered. That will ensure that only these vehicles that have this unique identity of NGVMS are refilled at any NMDPRA accredited station. So any station there are 50 of them today, and we hope that before the end of the year we will rise above 125 to 150, that any station that has CNG to dispense will first check to make sure that you have this unique NGVMS identity. You might have a unique NGVMS identity, but you're already out of spec. It's possible that after your 1 year inspection, you did not go for it. You will also be required to then go for it before they dispense CNG to you. So there will be no dispensing to you unless you have this unique NGVMS identity. Further, they will also be working with the FRSC, the Federal Road Safety Commission, to make sure that even if your vehicles are stopped on the road and they know automatically, seeing your vehicle and inspecting it, that it's a gas vehicle. By the way, this is not just going to cover CNG vehicles. It's also going to impact vehicles that are running on LNG, vehicles running on LPG if there are any, and also in the future, probably vehicles running on hydrogen. It just has to be a gas vehicle. So that's why it's called Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System. Once you are a gas vehicle, the FRSC pulls over or stops you, inspects your vehicle and says, where is your permit, your updated permit for this? And you must also show it. There will be some enforcement on the road as well. So beyond enforcement at the pump, there will also be enforcement on the road. The combination of these four agencies, under the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Gas NGVMS system, we are working with them on, because again, you remember we're a presidential initiative. The ministry, the institutions needs to onboard this for this to be effective. So we're working closely with the minister. I will be very grateful today. We're very grateful to the Minister of Petroleum Gas for his support for this program, and we continue to look forward to working with him to ensure the success of the implementation of the NGVMS as quickly as possible.
Indeed. That brings me to the cost of conversion. Maybe people choose to patronize quacks like you rightly addressed because of the cost of conversion. What is the cost of conversion averagely for now?
Yeah, again, it should not be an excuse. You should not, I think, we should not excuse crime because of economic factors. Otherwise, every thief will be let go. Every thief will say, oh, it's because I cannot afford food. That's why I came to rob you. Right? You must just comply with the law. The cost of conversion is there, and the president and the government have stepped in to make it easier for the commercial sector, free for the ride share sector that is using it for business and private, 50% off. Right? And for the private sector, we have launched a credit core program that allows you, if you're working as the staff of a company like yourself and you have your salary, you can apply for credits to be able to do your conversion. So the rails to make it affordable and accessible is already provided. Then you have no reason to be committing the crime and endangering your own life, because it's your life that is first endangered. The incident in Benin, the first person that was injured was the owner of the vehicle. Right? The person that actually brought that vehicle to the site was the first person that was injured. I think I had a blown off finger. It's alive because it's not petrol. If it's petrol, it's probably dead. But the most important thing to know is that you are endangering your life because you want to cut corners. Yes, today the range of cost of conversion for the private sector, assuming you're a private person, you're not commercial, it's about between 800,000 and 1.5 million naira, depending on your type of vehicle. But then again, if you consider the fact that you're saving 80 to 90% every week, It means that in less than 10 weeks, you will have recovered the cost of conversion. So why cut corners that can end your life, such that you will not see that 10 weeks? So it definitely does not make sense.
Absolutely doesn't. Let's quickly look at how to access the free CNG buses. I understand the free ride will end today. So how do one access it? What is the procedure to access the buses?
No, it ends today. You didn't need any procedure. You just go to the parks prior to today to board the buses. But after today, the buses are available. Still going to be operated by our partners at NATO, URTW, and Return. Out of all the parks where they've been operating from for both interstate and intrastate. It just now costs money to board. And there's a website. If you go to our website, www.pci.gov.ng, you can schedule your bus transit, just the way you schedule your train transit as well. You can schedule your bus transit and go on and do so. Or you can go to any of these parks and you'll be able to get your carry card. You load it and you tap. And you can board any of these buses within the state, in FCT, at first instance where it's currently being run, and then the interstate mass transit as well.
All right. As we wrap up now the conversation now, let's see the depth of infrastructure before you came on board. How much of impact, or does it in any way slow the progress of this initiative?
Yes, naturally. We wish that we are in a country where there's already pipeline everywhere, but the pipeline was being constructed. It took so long to get off the bat, but the previous administration got to it, and AKK is being constructed. Should be done anytime this year, I understand, from NNPC. But in the meantime, we're encouraging mini LNG projects to extend that infrastructure so that the whole of the country, both the northeast and northwest, can have CNG as well, not just the southwest, the southeast, south-south, and north central. We definitely have a dearth of distribution infrastructure when it comes to virtual pipelines as well as daughter stations, but we are seeing increased investment in it. Like I said, about 86 of them, according to NMDPRA data, is under construction. Actually 80 now, because 6 got turned on last week, so I have to update my data too to say 80, but 6 is now completed, and so there are more. There are 56 operational daughter stations now in the country, with this additional 6 from NMPC last week in Lagos. So every day, new daughter stations are being turned on, new conversion mother stations are being turned on. And we also got a permit window opened for what we call the mobile refueling units and containerized refueling units, that then allows us to actually have smaller refueling centers across the country, either in convention centers or in motor parks, for example. And that's already been approved by NMDPRA in December. So I expect that there will be more infusion of these types also, in addition to the static stations that will be distributing CNG this year.
Interesting there. I must thank you for your contribution on the show. On the show today, we must also wish you the best of luck. It's a huge task that you are handling. It's not very easy, of course, starting a project like this from the scratch. We must thank you, Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi, Project Director, CEO, Presidential CNG Initiative, for your time on Business Daily. We appreciate your contributions.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
With that is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akugun.